So you want to talk about G2 versus Misfits? Because like I think we can do a very quick recap of this one too. Flacken had a very good series, which I think he really stepped up overall. I think Cap stepped up a little bit too. A lot of this was dominated by Jankos and Broken Blade being fabulous. Also, Misfits, we talked about it before. Mursa and Zlatan seem to have very big stage nerves. They performed significantly worse. Here it has been worse than last year overall.
He's got
his face kicked in by Broken Blade overall. And VTO, in spite of VTO did some very good things on Vex in game 1 to try and orchestrate a comeback, but that was really the closest they got to any kind of lead in this series. It was
they actually almost came back into that game.
Yes.
they were really close to coming back into that game, despite them getting like if you're realistically looking at that game as an expert viewer, and you look and you see like whatever it was, like 0-2 Vex, 0-2 Na versus Camille at like however many minutes it was, like Camille already super far ahead. It's rough. It's really rough from that point. It's really hard to win the game against that Camille. But they actually had some really nice team fights from behind. But yeah, I can't even remember what the final blunder was, but I think they like almost fought their way back into the game, and then they just had like one time where they all blundered and just died. And they just, 5 of them just died, and then the game was over, which was super sad. I think the big story of the series in general was like G2 drafting for mid prio, and then Misfits lanes like not playing correctly against it. Like I think game 2 was when they played Jinx Tarm, and there's loads of examples of like I think jungler shows top to gank for Hear It, and Mercer and Neon like all in 5 seconds later on bot lane. When your jungler just showed, and you know the enemy jungler is bot side, you should know the enemy jungler is bot side. And so obviously they just die. And there's loads of stuff like that where every time it feels like whenever someone got a free move into their lane, whether it was top or bot, they kind of just died. And then obviously like mid lane will get a counter move, and Vito would then like move top, deny some CS from Broken Blade, but not kill him. And then the bot lane would die again. So the snowball was like just 4 times bigger for G2 from what I saw.
Even though, as we pointed out, like when we were talking about LCS, for example, like, look, Summit can still be the MVP of the LCS even if he played shit in the playoffs. It's a regular season award, right? I don't want people to do that thing where they go, you said Vethio was the best. Where was it? Playoffs is different. But I actually think the playoffs show you how important Vethio was. Because when he wasn't hard carrying these games, mate, Misfits looks like such a fucking whack team. Like, they just had nothing against any of the teams they played against pretty much. Like, this just showed you this guy really was stomping these fucking regular season games. He was hard carrying the fuck, and nearly always, you remember on Playmaking Champions that you can do all sorts of shit in the fight. So what you saw was he still had a couple of games. He had 1 or 2 where he was good, but he wasn't at the same level, and for most of the games he wasn't the same threat. And quite frankly, it even looked, this is one thing I worried about, it looked also like they didn't just cynically load everything into him and go, right, carry the whole series. Like, they sort of tried to play real League of Legends, which I hate when you have a one-man team, you know.
Well, they had Neon too. I think the problem was that Mursa was just incredibly underwhelming in the playoffs as a whole. And so it put them in a scenario where they want to like do things like game 3 counterpick Tryndamere with Fiora.
Another rookie.
And that's the level of desperation they got to, was that they couldn't even rely on their bot lane anymore because of Mursa's performance. And so they have to try and like all in on a Fiora counterpick into Tryndamere, and with Hear It's performance, it's just not going to work. Like, where do you turn to at that point in time? It's just super rough.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a horrible matchup for them. And I think, like, honestly, the adaptation they tried to make in game 1 is, like, the right kind of adaptation. The problem that they have is, like, VTO is your, like, main carry player of the game, right? The thing is that when they put him on main carry champions, like when they put him on LeBlanc in game 2, it's not like you get, like, easy prio, you know? And like they first picked him the LeBlanc, which is the right thing to do, I think, for sure for them. But obviously Caps is going to pick Lissandra, and then Caps is going to roam. And then if your bot lane dies a bunch of times when Lissandra's roaming, and enemy top lane doesn't die to the counter roam from you, then, well, sucks. Like, you're now behind in the game, and it's really, really hard to play LeBlanc versus Lissandra from significantly behind in the game, and Jack's kind of 1v9 that game. So it's kind of like doomed if you do, doomed if you don't, because on the other hand, they could put him on like a facilitator, which is what they tried to do in the Vex, right? I think G2 camped him early, which was really smart from them. But even then, like, if he... like, where is he roaming if he's playing Vex and winning in the mid 2v2? Because in game,
you have to have somebody to fucking help, dude.
Yeah, like
if you look at the way that these like Korean and Chinese teams are playing Vex, it is a side lane enabler, or it's a follow-up engage within a team fight, right? Those are the two ways that you end up playing Vex. But you have to have other threats on the team.
Yeah. I mean, Broken Blade was playing Camille versus Gnar, which is supposed to be losing early, and like it's all hitting the Gnar, blowing the Gnar's flash, like had wave control. Like it's not fun to play like a facilitating mid laner in that position. And then like I think that's how honestly you end up with what happened in game 3, because the game 3 draft was like so weird. Like you just blind pick Sylas because you have to go like red side and ban LeBlanc at that point, because it hasn't worked for you in either game. I mean, you could do the LeBlanc again, but like it didn't work out right. So they try to adapt. They just like blind pick their carry, their best champion. They hope he can carry on Sylas, or like one of his best champions, right? That they're just hoping, like, you know, they see a Hecarim, they see a Renata whose ulti I'm assuming is pretty good on Sylas. So they're like, okay, we just pick Sylas and we hope for the best. But I mean, they end up with like no priors in this game against like Hecarim, and then I mean, the Fiora counter pick is supposed to work into Tryndamere. Like I've seen some Fiora counter picks into Tryndamere, and like honestly, the matchup is rough for Tryndamere. I think like level 1, 2, 3, it's like. I mean, this was a Worlds, right? So it's a different level of Fiora player. It was Ale actually playing it against us, and holy moly, that was not pleasant. But like it's awful. Like we looked through this matchup like a lot at Worlds, and basically came to the conclusion of like, well, if you're Tryndamere and you're playing against a really good Fiora, you just cannot do anything. Like level 1, 2, 3, 4, like he has full wave control. You lose slow trades, you lose poke, you lose all in trades. Like it's just a horrible matchup.
Luckily, he wasn't playing against a really good Fiora, though. So
it didn't look that horrible when they were playing it. So they ended up with just like losing everywhere on the map, like super hardcore losing lanes. Aphelios, Leona versus Hecarim, like they don't have like a Tahm Kench or anything like that, which is kind of weird that they didn't pick the Tahm Kench there. So your Aphelios is kind of like bait at that point, and you're just hoping that Sylas 1v9s. But yeah. If your Fiora isn't winning,
it's funny that you mentioned that matchup at Worlds with Ali's Fiora, because LNG played like absolute shit this last week in the LPL playoffs. Did you watch when they blind picked Fiora in the third game when they were down 0-2? Because that's
a classic.
That was really fucking hard to watch.
The worst part is that at Worlds we came to the conclusion that you actually just have to ban Fiora against this team and against a couple of other teams as well, because like we had multiple Chinese teams who would just blind pick Fiora against us, and I'll be like, so what are we playing against this? Like, and it didn't fucking matter. Like, at least, especially with AO, like this guy's actually just too good on Fiora.
Well, he's fallen a long way. Let's put it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah.
He was fucking terrible in this series.
There's another reason, though, why no one fears Misfits. Because you can literally just ban Lee Sin and Schlatten doesn't play League of Legends anymore. Go and have a look. Of the 13 games they have won, including playoffs, this split, 7 of his wins are on fucking Lee Sin. So all G2 does is cynically ban Lee Sin every game. It's not like Yanko's just going to lock it in first pick anyway. And that's it. It's just over. You don't have to worry about Schlatten now. Like, this is the problem with, I mean, I know people are going to go, is he a rookie? Like, rookies in that sense, like, he was too limited a player. Again, my problem is this, right? In a way, Mac, I actually find it a bit hard to criticise Misfits, because obviously if I watch the game, I can criticise the fuck out of them. But essentially, they shouldn't be in this position. Like, they had no business being a 3 seed. Like, they did it because one guy had one of the hardest individual stomp fucking splits ever. And then, realistically, he's by the way, I do this thing where I don't care how many splits you've played. If you've played for like 1 year and you're as young as Vethius, you're a rookie still as far as I'm concerned. Like, how I use that term, you are a rookie, mate. You've barely fucking played League of Legends. So, like, thinking he wasn't going to do it in the playoffs. And then when the rest of the team also falls apart, all of a sudden Misfits is like, realistically, they're not that good a team. Like, it's basically the difference between them with VTO going ham and without is like, when he doesn't, they're not even a playoff team, in my opinion. Like, I actually really do feel like if I was XL, I'd be like, dude, give me a crack at them. I might be able to beat them in the series, but we don't get to play because we were in the last place match.
Yeah, I mean, like, they hugely overperformed in the regular season, and
some props,
fair,
you know.
I think Schlatten actually does deserve a lot of the credit for that, because I think a lot of the process of making sure, like, their early games were like dumpster fires for a lot of the time, right? But realistically, watching them, like, the only 2 players who are usually in the game are VTO and Schlatten, and those two, like, they end up coming back in team fights, and like Neon had some great team fights, Hero had some great team fights, but like in terms of like actually playing the early game, being around mid at the correct times, making aggressive plays at the correct times, like Schlatten and VTO were both, I think, quite willing to make like aggressive plays at the correct times, even as very young players, rookies, whatever you want to call them, despite the whole map being like completely on fire. which I think takes a lot of composure and poise. And I think Zlatan was pretty solid for the most of the regular season. It might be that he was a lot better on Lee Sin. His Lee Sin's very good. I'd probably give him Lee Sin twice in regular season. That sounds like something I would do. But I think he's pretty good on Xin Zhao as well, actually. And I think maybe Javan.
I think obviously the Lee Sin ban hurts, but for me it was the nerves. Just watching, these are players that don't have significant stage experience coming into having even no audience stage experience, and compared to the regular season, there was a very notable dip in performance from both Zlatan and Mursa in the 2 series that we watched.
Yeah, which is completely to be expected. I mean, I think it's something that people don't necessarily realize as much, but like for example, when we brought Kazi and Humanoid into the team, like those guys had played on big stages for like their entire careers so far in the ERLs, because big stages existed in the ERLs back then. And then we went into COVID. Like this year, bringing Unforgiven and Rika into the team, neither of them had ever played a game on stage, ever. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if definitely Mercer. I'm pretty sure Mercer has never played a game on stage ever in his life before this year. Zlatan might have, because he was
maybe some smaller LAN or something years ago. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. But like, they've never had any experience like this, not even close. So obviously they're going to perform worse.
Yes,
like, that's normal and that's expected. And I think given the circumstances, Misfits like way overperformed, and like they deserve credit for having a really good.
Yes,
like you can't hate on them because they're third place, but they're not supposed to be third place, right? Which is
exactly
what you're saying.
It's why I say I don't want to hate on them too much, because essentially, like, they overperformed and put themselves in an even harder situation than they otherwise would have been. Like, if they'd have been the team that just snuck in on the last game to playoffs and then lost in that last match to Vitality, no one would care. It'd be fine. That'd be acceptable. No one would hate on them. The problem they had here was because they got the 3rd seed, and then even then, like, it kind of said it all when you pick the 3rd seed as number 1. Like, it's already a bad sign already, boys, when we're picking the guy that has the fucking the better win. And then on top of that, like, it just put you in a whole bunch of series that you were never supposed to win. You were never supposed to win any of these series. It's totally expected you'd lose. It's fine.
Absolutely.
And I'll even say this. I actually think, as much as, like, for the split, you'd go, it's just a fucking VTO story. Like, if he doesn't play as well, it's not going to be as good. I'll go the other way on that, though. Hirit, surely he's going to get better in the summer. Surely. Like, he had a really bad split.
He was pretty good last year.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I don't know if he's going to be like a monster. I don't think he can be that bad. And if he is, by the way, it's just time to get rid of him, because the problem is he feeds too hard.
I mean, Misfits have good pieces for the future, right? Like Zlatan, Neon, and Mercer, and like Hirit like seems like a coin flip at the moment, right? But like, if you're looking to be like a team that develops talent, like it's fine to have a coin flip player on your team. Yes. Like if he comes up heads, great, you keep him. If not, then fine. Like it doesn't work out, and you can always go with someone else in like following years, right? But like, I think in terms of the pieces they have on their team to develop, they have like for sure good pieces. I mean, they're almost undoubtedly going to lose VTO next year, right? Because his contract's coming up.
It's obvious, yes.
But like,
someone's going to offer him the king's ransom. It just feels obvious at this point, doesn't it?
I mean, yeah, of course. But I think they have like for sure good pieces to develop.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.